So, how was episode 6 of Ahsoka? Well, it's certainly a slower episode, but also serves a great purpose, in this case, vastly expanding the lore. But it also relies a lot on you understanding the animated shows, which I do, but what of the people that do not? You see, I love content that's made for the fans, but I also understand that if we want more of what we like needs to be successful. It needs views, it needs to find a way to also appeal to general audiences. And that's where this episode fails. I personally love this episode because Thrawn and Ezra really mean something to me. So the Ezra-Sabine reunion has a lot of weight, but they definitely should have made it much more emotional. The way their reunion played out was definitely a flaw in the writing. I'll talk about this in more detail once we get to that scene. And Thrawn showing up is a game changer in my eyes. But if you haven't watched Rebels, it'll mean nothing to you. Because this show is essentially Rebels Season 5, they should have done a 1 to 2 minutes recap narration of what happened in Rebels Season 4. It really doesn't take much to give the audience context into what happened, so why not do that? Now, what this episode really gets right is the lore. It is so important to expand the mythology and history of the world that you are building. And this is stuff that Dave Filoni has always done well in the animations. I mean, the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, the world between worlds in Rebels, the Loth Wolves, Bendu, and now going deeper into the history of the Night Sisters, which was also introduced in the Clone Wars to setting up this power that Baylan is looking for. It just makes you more interested in this world. You're left wanting more, and this is exactly what successful lore building is supposed to do. So it does a very good job in this regard. I must also point out that Baylan and Shin are two of the most interesting characters introduced to Star Wars in a very long time. When they are talking, my eyes are just glued to the screen, and we get more insight into them in this episode, which I really loved. So let's run through the whole episode. It opens up with a quick Ahsoka and Huyang scene where we can see that Ahsoka is conflicted about Sabine because of the choice she made to not destroy the map. I am very interested to see how the dynamic between Sabine and Ahsoka will play out now. Then we have a scene between Sabine and Baylan where he seems to imply that he might not keep his word to her. In the scene right after, Morgan straight up asks him if he will keep his promise, and he does not really answer the question. In episode 4, Baylan promised Sabine that no harm would come to her.
I give you my word. No harm will come to you.
And that she will see Ezra again. When Shin starts to force choke her, Baylan tells Shin to stop because he intends to honor his word.
I gave her my word, and unlike her former master, I shall keep mine.
But in this episode, it seems like he doesn't intend to do so. So which is it? Is he a man of his word or not? In episode 4, my answer would be yes. In this episode, my answer would be no. He made no promise of not harming Ezra after she finds him, so I will understand if he tries something against him, but if he actually does attempt to harm Sabine as well, it will be very inconsistent with how he acted in episode 4. In this scene, we find out that Peridia is actually the ancient homeworld of the Dathomiri. Dathomir is the planet in our main galaxy where the Night Sisters used to live before they were essentially wiped out. So now we find out that they originally came from Peridia. It's also mentioned that the Dathomiri were among the first to harness and ride the Purgles, and that the Purgles go there to die. This is really interesting history that I want to learn more about. Then we meet the 3 Great Mothers that guided Morgan to their location. Here they mention that Sabine reeks of Jedi, and that it's dangerous. I'm wondering if they actually pick up Ahsoka through Sabine, or if they are referring to either Baylan or Shin, because I do not see how Sabine is dangerous to them. Unless they are actually sensing something that she will do later, possibly with Ezra, that will pose a danger to them and their plans. Next, we get insight into Baylan's motivations. He isn't here for Thrawn. He is here for a greater power, something he calls the beginning.
What I seek is the beginning.
He believes this power will finally end the destructive cycle of war and death that repeats itself throughout history.
Repeats again and again.
It just makes his character so interesting because he's not just seeking power for himself, he wants to use this power for the greater good.
So I may finally bring this cycle to an end.
Sabine then attempts to use the Force, but still fails. And so we get Thrawn's epic entrance. This really hits hard for me because I know how dangerous he is. His intellect is his greatest power. He really is a genius, but also so ruthless. I think the Night Troopers were very well designed too. It seems like they might be people that were brought back from the dead by Night Sister magic. And I think we'll see more people get brought back from the dead by the Night Sisters because Thrawn is having them load cargoes from the catacombs into the ship per his agreement with the Great Mothers.
I have seen the catacombs. It will take some time.
And they all look like coffins. Then we have Thrawn letting Sabine go so that he can use her to find Ezra, and so she takes off with the Howler. The next scene I found very intriguing because when Thrawn tells Shin and Baylan to follow Sabine, she does not like the idea of them not keeping their word.
I thought you were to honor your agreement.
And later on, when Baylan and Shin are looking for Sabine, she seemed eager to hear more about the Jedi. And when she heard about Ezra, she immediately identified herself with him.
Like me.
So I can definitely see her turning to the light later on. Here I also love how Baylan mentions that he misses the idea of the Jedi but not who they actually were, because the Jedi did go down a path that they were not supposed to and were very limiting. We also get him saying that
The enemy of our enemy is our friend.
I think this might come back later on, maybe with Shin having to side with Sabine, Ahsoka, and Ezra against Thrawn. With Sabine finding Ezra, I like the idea that she was only able to find Ezra by relying on the native animals and creatures of this world. The connection she builds with the Howler and then her kindness towards the creatures she meets is what leads her to Ezra. Now to me, Ezra and Sabine reuniting is a huge moment. Having watched them grow up together in Rebels and seeing Ezra make the sacrifice he did just makes this moment very special to me. I love the banter they have here because it is identical to how they were in Rebels. However, I do wish that they would have made it more emotional. Having Sabine immediately run to him and hug him seems much more realistic. I do understand what they were going for. The whole point is that Ezra was so certain that Sabine would find him one day that he's not surprised at all to see her. It's more like a finally, I knew you'd come through, than a oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Same for Sabine. She knows he's on this planet and that he might show up at any minute now, so when she sees him, it's just a relief. A burden lifted off of her shoulders. But I still don't agree with the direction that they chose. I think that they should have made this much more emotional. For such a weighted reunion, they should have had Sabine break down immediately and hug him. You can have all the banter afterwards. This moment is supposed to mean so much to Sabine, so despite understanding the writer's intentions, it was still confusing to see her not react more emotionally here. Because of Rebels, this scene is still special to me, particularly their hug, but it did fall flat from what I expected. So I can't imagine how much worse it would have played to general audiences. General audiences do not even understand how special Ezra is to Sabine, and this moment did not help at all in portraying his significance to her. I am curious to see Ezra's reaction when he finds out about what Sabine gave up to find him. I think he will be extremely upset. So yeah, it was great to see Ezra in live action, but to those who haven't seen Rebels, you wouldn't even know Ezra, so it wouldn't be a big deal. Lastly, we have Thrawn finding out Ahsoka survived and asking for all information on her, including who her master was. Thrawn should know that Anakin turned into Darth Vader, so his interactions with Ahsoka will be very interesting. He also says he needs the witch's dark magic. I'm wondering if he's thinking of bringing someone back from the dead right away or use magic to trick Ahsoka. Overall, the highlight this episode was by far the building of the mythology. You are moving forward by exploring ancient elements from the past that we have never seen before. It's something new, and it feels like it's what Star Wars needs. But because when it comes to the characters and understanding the story and the threats, you are relying so much on Rebels, I do not know how this will play to general audiences. The show has many great elements, but also big problems. But this I'll address on my whole series review analysis after all episodes come out. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.